But I'm really pleased to have as our guest Ray Mariano, the Executive Director of the Worcester Housing Authority, former Mayor of the City of Worcester. Welcome, Ray.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Ray, you and I have had a chance to talk about the program that you've put together, A Better Life, and how it is a really important program and addresses needs in a variety of different ways. One of the single biggest issues that we hear at the Chamber from our members, regardless of the size of the company or the sector, is pipeline, workforce development.
Sure.
And the program A Better Life, which has gotten some attention, not just locally but nationally, is all about that. So I'd love for you to maybe take a few moments and kind of share how and why you got the A Better Life program started.
Well, when I started at the Housing Authority, we had some work that we needed to do before we could get to helping families. We had a crime problem in some of our properties, particularly our family properties. We've reduced vice crime by 90%, overall crime by 60%. You go around this country, you won't find a neighborhood that can boast those kind of statistics. We've taken a number of our properties that were eyesores, that were littered with abandoned cars and graffitis, and we made them the best looking property in the neighborhood. Actually, we have a program called Neighborhood Best, where our objective is to take a particular property, like up in Tatnick, Mill Pond, or Mayside, and make that property the best in the neighborhood so that it lifts up the property values of everybody around. Once we got all that done, we looked to help people on the other side of the door. I didn't take the job to be executive director just to fix the windows and the doors. I mean, that's important.
But obviously your experience as mayor, reinforced, those little things matter, the graffiti, the abandoned cars, paying attention to those, symbolic things that send messages.
It's a big deal to the community. It's also a big deal to the residents. Lets them know that they're important, and it lets them know that we expect something of them. So the next step was to create a program that allows people to get lifted up out of poverty. Now, I grew up in public housing, and interestingly enough, when I started to walk around the property, I found families that were there since I was a kid. Now, I'm not 20 years old anymore, so they've been there for a while. And we started to trace them back. We traced families back 5 generations. The same family, the Murray family, one generation, great-grandfather, grandfather, all the way down to the grandkids and the great-grandkids. And it's not what public housing was supposed to be. It's supposed to be a helping hand, a temporary stop. And some folks need to be there longer than others. So we put a program together that we call A Better Life. It is supposed to do exactly what it says, lead them to a better life. And we offered the program on a voluntary basis. And what we found was people weren't willing, for a variety of reasons, they weren't willing to do the hard work necessary. We reached out to 1,200 families. We only got 30 families. And we couldn't even keep the number at 30 to do the work. The ones who participated did very well, but we couldn't keep it. So then we created a phase 2, which was, we said to the Murray family, would you like to move into public housing? Now, you've been on the waiting list for 3 years. You're homeless.
So it was a voluntary program. When you say it was a voluntary program for residents or people who were interested in getting into the housing authority?
No, the first phase was just for all the residents. That was voluntary, and that failed in that it didn't reach enough people. Enough people didn't sign up. So we said to people on the waiting list, we said, okay, we'll give you what we call an admissions preference. We'll put the Murray family or the Mariano family at the top of the waiting list. If they agree to sign up to go to work or go to school as a requirement of their lease, only 7% of the people on the list, even those who have been homeless for years, agreed to sign up for the program. 93% said, no, we don't want to do the hard work. The good news for us is, although that's bad news, the good news is we have such a big waiting list that we had more than enough people to take the preference, and we started enrolling them in the program. We now have a third phase, and the third phase is for everybody who's living in public housing, could be living there 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, said, all right, you got to go to work. And I won't bore you with all the details, but you go to work and we provide intensive case management. So we start with a person and we assess all the things that we need to assess. We look at their health and the health of all of their kids. We look at their education. We look at their finances. We look at their job readiness, because a lot of the folks that we do business with haven't worked in their life and haven't had a parent or a grandparent who's had a job.
To show that model, to be that role model example of how you go about your work, bettering yourself, your family.
So they don't know how to go to work. So we look at that, and we look at their personal challenges as well, other issues of domestic violence and whatever else. And we put a program together to help each individual family. There's really no model to do this, Tim. I mean, we've looked at other places around the country that have done things like this, but there's really no model like this in the country. And actually what we just got the latest data out, and what we found was this. We were able to triple the number of people employed full-time from 20% to 60%. We were able to raise the number of people employed overall to 75%, full and part-time. We tripled their wages. We quadrupled the number of people in school. We have over $300,000 in escrowed savings for these participants in the program. And we're doing things that far beyond what I ever expected. I never thought we'd hit these kind of numbers. I remember there was a Bill Rogers, who you know, the Boston Marathon runner. He won the marathon one year, and they told him his time. And he said, that's not possible. I can't run that fast. You know, that's my feeling about this. I can't imagine. We keep getting the numbers, and they keep getting better. I can't imagine that we can sustain these numbers. They've been terrific. We also had Boston University study the program. So they validated the numbers. It's not just Ray Mariano saying it, but it's Boston University School of Public Health, Dr. Emily Rothman, who has reviewed, and they have a comparison group, and they do all the things.
And this is together with the foundation of
the Health Foundation
of Central Mass, right?
The Health Foundation, Dr. Janie Yost and the Health Foundation of Central Mass has funded this for the last 4 years. They've been terrific partners, and anybody who knows Janie Yost knows she gets into it up to her neck. I mean,
But she's this accountability and expectations,
yeah,
right?
And she insisted on the BU study, which was, I think, a terrific thing because it gives great credibility to our numbers. And so almost all of our folks, not all, but almost all of our folks are entry-level candidates. And what we found was that a number of them, and we provide them with training. We provide them with computer training, computer literacy, you know, Computer 101, Computer 102, Microsoft. We do all of those things. Right. We retail. There are a number of courses that we work with Workforce Central, online training. We provide them with GED training, ESL training. But the best way to hire one of our applicants, oftentimes, not always, is to hire them as an apprentice. So we say, okay, we've got young Tim Murray here. He's eager to do well. He's never had a real job for a long period of time. The job pays $15 an hour. We're going to hire him as an apprentice, and we're going to pay him $12. And we're going to watch him for 6 months. And we're going to, so he's going to go to work every day. He's going to do
that's a practice that many companies use, labor unions use, so it's a common practice, a way to kind of test an employee.
Well, we actually started doing it at the Housing Authority. I said, well, wait a minute. You know, I said, let us lead this. And we started hiring our folks, and it was funny. I went to some of my department heads and said, okay, you're going to hire this gal. She's terrific. You're going to hire her as an apprentice. She looked at the resume and said, no, I don't want to hire her. I said, well, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, you're going to hire her. And we would go back and forth, and you turn around, not only did she do well as an apprentice, not only did she get promoted to a regular employee, she was employee of the quarter for the entire Housing Authority. Right. But she had to learn. I mean, it took a little while. It's an investment that you make. You pay a little bit less, and it's an investment that pays off in dividends. You have loyal employees who appreciate the opportunity. They're not looking to job hop to go to the next place. They're going to stay with the company. They want to grow with the company. We have one person, Don Prescott is his name, and his job is to work with employers. He reaches out, he calls. I mean, some of the people watching this program will have said, he's probably come to my HR department twice already. You know, we knock on doors. And I understand when you say somebody from public housing. I understand that employers are reluctant. But we do it. They screen them. We wouldn't send anyone. We sent one person to the Chamber of Commerce. But I told them, don't send anybody to Tim Murray who isn't going to make it. You make sure that you pre-screen them, you test them, you interview them, and then you send them over to an employer and say, okay, this person is probably ready to do the job. We've got a lot of people who are anxious to go to work who aren't ready, and that we won't send out for interviews.
Because you want to have them ready.
Because we want to have them, we want to make sure that when they go out, they carry our name with them. And so that when I call Tim Murray a second time and say, geez, I got somebody else for you, he doesn't say, Ray, listen, the last one didn't work out, you know, and they're not all perfect. Every employee doesn't work out anywhere from any group, but we've got a pipeline. And when I talked to you way back and you told me the biggest need is the pipeline, getting trainable employees who will come to work every day and will work with us. We've got those men and women. And frankly, the women are harder workers than the guys.
Yeah, we got a good one. We're going to come right back. Just stay with us. We're going to talk a little bit more Better Life program, and we'll want to thank our sponsor, Fallon Health, but we'll be right back with Ray Mariano. We're going to continue our conversation with Ray Mariano, the Executive Director of the Worcester Housing Authority. And Ray, we've been talking about a Better Life program, how you've had third-party validation, how it's exceeded expectations, the study by BU, some of the national attention that the program has gotten. But it's about expectations. It's about mentorship. It's about supports. It's about setting people up for success. But I just want to come back to that word expectations. Many of the people or families that you're dealing with, they've never had a parent or a guardian or someone who they've seen go up and work and get ready for work and understand there's a demeanor and a place, and you work with them all of that. And what is it just on a personal level? Sure. I mean, we've got great numbers, but as you're talking to some of the participants in the program, how it's changed their lives.
Well, I can think of several women that I've talked to in the last couple of months, and I've asked them how they're doing. I see them at different events, and you talk to them about how they're doing. And all three of them, when I asked them privately, how are you doing? They all started to cry. And each one said essentially the same thing. They said, I never thought I could do this. My family is so proud of me. They never thought I could achieve the things that I'm achieving. And when you look at what they've achieved, they're things that you and I take for granted. They have their own savings account. They have a job. They're studying for their GED. I mean, these are things that you and I would take for granted and consider routine. But for them, they're breaking a cycle of intergenerational poverty that's lasted for generations. And they're incredibly, not only devoted to the program, but they're appreciative of the opportunities that employers give them. So most of them, and when they come in, sometimes it takes a little work. We have one of our apprentices working with us now, and she's doing a good job, but a little rough spot at the beginning, and I told her supervisor, work with her, understand she doesn't know what it's like to go to work. She came in to do something, and she said, well, I got to go see Ray, and I've got to ask him about something, and she said, no, Mr. Mariano's busy right now, and tell me what it is, and I'll help you. So it's understanding how to go to work and some of those things, but they're incredibly appreciative. To the point that it brings them to tears. And they're proud. They like the idea that their child looks at them and sees mom or dad going to work every single day. And most of these are moms, going to work every single day. And they overcome incredible obstacles. Right. These are people with 2 or 3 kids who don't have a car, yet they find their way to work every single day. They struggle with childcare issues, and it easily puts people on the sidelines. But they figure it out. We've got one woman that goes to work every day. She's got 2 kids, special needs. She's going through a difficult personal relationship and splitting up with her husband. And those things would put someone on the sidelines. But she's coming every day, and we're pretty excited about it.
And so, we get feedback occasionally on the show. We've got employers out there. You mentioned Don.
Yeah, Don Prescott.
So if there's an employer out there that says, look, as I said, we consistently hear all the time, I need workforce, I need training. If they want to learn about the program, we want to try an apprentice program. How do we get the word out?
They ought to talk to Don Prescott. Call the Housing Authority and ask for Don Prescott. And Don will tell them the other employers who have hired our participants so that they can call those employers and find out what their experience is. We're not trying to sell a pig in a poke. Look, you and I, we're both mayors. This is our city. Right. I'm not going anywhere.
We're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I don't want someone to say, oh, hey, Mariano, look, the person you sent me. We're trying to sell what we think is a very good product, good people, not perfect, need training, but who will over the long haul become valued members of the company and loyal to the company. If they call Don, he will say, call this employer. You're a manufacturer, call this employer. You're in healthcare, call this employer, and see what their experience has been hiring our participants. Then if you're happy, call us back and we'll fit you with somebody.
During the break, we talked briefly, asked about expectations, individual family expectations, but you're also trying to create a culture of expectations at the Housing Authority and community of expectations, and something you're going to be doing at Curtis.
We are going to create, we are in the process right now of creating what we call ABL Village, a Better Life Village. And right now you have people who live in an apartment in a hallway where there are 6 apartments where they're the only person going to work. At ABL Village, they'll live in a community, small community of about 54 residences where everybody there will be in school or be at work or be both in school and at work at the same time. So their neighbors will be going through the same thing. It's really important to have, the fancy word that they use is cohort, but it's a support group.
Support network,
It's a support group of people who are going through the same thing, who've got kids, the kids are trying to study, and they all want the same thing, as opposed to being the one person in the hallway or the one person in the neighborhood that's trying to do the right thing. We've got right now, we've got 200 people in our A Better Life program. And they're doing well. It is the hardest work I've ever done, far and away. I mean, I've done some things that I'm proud of over the course of my career. But to see those faces, because I know, except for our program, except for the Health Foundation's support and my board support, no, those families would be right where they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and they wouldn't be making a difference.
We don't have much time, and it's a complicated question, but or maybe it's not that complicated, but this is kind of a new paradigm, and I think people say it's common sense. It's about changing expectations, raising expectation, aspirational vision. You're working with the state in terms of their funding on public housing, how to grow that. How do you see this best practice, this paradigm that you've helped create, grow, not only in Worcester, but beyond?
Well, that's what we've been working on, and that's why we've been getting some national attention, because we're trying to talk to people around the country. I don't just want to be successful in Worcester. When I leave the Housing Authority, I want to have planted the seed so that it grows across the country to help as many families as we can. It's very difficult. There are a small group of housing advocates, good people, well-intentioned, who think housing is a right and you can't make somebody go to work, and they should go to work when they're ready. My answer to them is this. Number one, we've been waiting for 5 generations for some of these families. We've waited long enough. Number two, if you have a better model, if you have a better answer, tell me what it is. I'll rip my plan up. We'll go do yours. 80% of the people in public housing are unemployed. 54% don't even have a driver's license. 40% don't have a high school diploma or a GED. That system has failed, and failed miserably. If you've got a better plan, tell me what that is. I debated a woman at Harvard Law School, and a lawyer, and she got up and she said, well, the program has these problems, and she gave her point of view, and I said, look, I'll tell you what, you tell me what your plan is, I'll rip mine up, but if you don't have a plan, get the heck out of my way, because we're saving families. I tell my staff this, Tim, and you can imagine this. When you go to work every day, look at the building, imagine that it's on fire, run in the building, pull a family out, and save them from a lifetime of poverty. Don't just let them stay in the building. And we've done that now for a few hundred families. And their path to self-sufficiency could be 20 years. It might not be 2 or 3 years everything's fixed. It could be 20 years. It might be that they do only so well, but their kids do better. All of those things are great.
It's the American dream.
It is the American dream, and the American dream was built on the employers of this country providing opportunity for new citizens, and that's what we're asking for. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and to members of the chamber and ask them to consider a good employee from the Worcester Housing Authority. No,
well, it's done. We're going to continue to promote it, and we can speak from example, having and continuing to participate in the Better Life program. So look forward to working with you to get the word out, growing the program, in the region, and just thanks for being with us, and thanks for creating this new workforce pipeline.
I'll tell you how many people call Don Prescott in the next few weeks.
No, we're going to get it out, not only at the TV show, but social media after this.